everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back again with another What Happened At video, and this time we're talking about AEW Full Gear 2020. On the whole, I think a strong argument could be made to say that this was a very, very strong show. One of the best pay-per-views of 2020, probably the best pay-per-view of 2020. Yeah, maybe, yeah. But that's just my opinion, of course. Let me know what you thought, as always, in the comments section down below. Now, without any further ado, let's take a look at what happened at AEW Full Gear 2020. Let's go. First of all, a quick mention of the solitary pre-show match with the NWA World Women's Champion Serena Deeb taking on a former champion in the form of Allison Kay, making her AEW debut. This was a really good match to start things off, a good pre-show match, probably a level above actually that of a standard pre-show match. It was a bit more serious, being a title match, than a lot of pre-show bouts are, and it was very much in the mold of a Serena Deeb match. Lots of excellent technical action, back and forth. Allison Kay used her strength and size advantage quite a lot as well, but Serena Deeb was just one step ahead of her on many different occasions in the match. And eventually it allowed Serena Deeb to roll Allison Kay into the Serenity Lock, her version of the Tequila Sunrise, for the clean submission victory. But that wasn't all, because afterwards, while Serena Deeb celebrated, she was interrupted by the woman she beat for the NWA World Women's Championship, Thunder Rosa. She got in the ring, they had a bit of a stare down, they didn't come to blows, but it's heavily implied that there'll be another match between the two. Now onto the main show, which started off with a match that I didn't actually see starting off the show, a huge match to kick things off. Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page in the final of the number one contenders tournament. The winner, of course, getting a shot at the AEW World Championship. And before the match began, it's worth noting that Don Callis joined the regular announce team, and AEW were very open about the fact that he is from Impact Wrestling. Don Callis, of course, is an excellent commentator. He fit right in there with the broadcast team, and of course, let's not forget that he's very close with Kenny Omega, so it made sense for him to be a special guest for this bout. Could there be a burgeoning partnership between AEW and Impact Wrestling, or is this just kind of a one-off sort of thing? Could Don Callis' links with New Japan come into play? We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but for now let's talk about this match, which was a very impressive, very accomplished, between two very good wrestlers, a very accomplished affair, but also a very hard-hitting one too. I mean, there were so many chops and strikes in this match, but also some really gnarly spots as well, like some big bumps taken by both men. I mean, Hangman at one point dropped Omega with a terrifying powerbomb on the ramp, then another one in the ring, but it was only good for a near fall. Omega fought back and hit one of the scariest spots of the night, a huge Tiger Driver 98, and Hangman's head did appear to land on the canvas first. Hopefully he's okay. He seemed fine, but that was scary, man. And as the end game of the match approached, Hangman got in position for the buckshot lariat. He'd previously crushed Omega with a standard version of the lariat, which almost spelled the end of the match, but Omega survived. But this time it was the buckshot variation, and Omega ducked. Hangman swung wildly, turned around, and was met with a big V-trigger to the face, and then another big V-trigger as well. And with that, Omega scooped Hangman up and looked for the one-winged angel. At first, it looked like Hangman was going to fight out, punching away, struggling, really fighting hard. But actually, it wasn't him escaping the move, it was just AEW portraying him as this kind of battling babyface competitor. But in the end, it wasn't enough to escape the move. Omega drilled Hangman with the one-winged angel, and that was enough for the three. They are still protecting that finisher. And after the match, Kenny sort of rolled over to check on Hangman, but then thought better of it and rolled away and went to the back. Victorious, of course, because he is the new number one contender to the AEW World Championship. When is someone going to kick out of that one-winged angel? Could it be Jon Moxley when they have their title match? Or could it be Hangman if Omega wins that belt and they face each other later down the line? Now on to the next match of the night, Orange Cassidy taking on John Silver, a match many of us expected to just be straight comedy from the off. And it was comedy at the very start, with Orange Cassidy doing all of his little kicks and all the shades and everything, and the hands in the pockets, until John Silver ripped the pockets out of Orange Cassidy's jeans. But then it defied a lot of our expectations, actually. The match went in a different direction, certainly one that I personally didn't expect, because then it just became a very, very good wrestling match. I'm not surprised, because I don't think they're good wrestlers. Of course I know that. They're both really, really good wrestlers. But I didn't think they'd actually have a really good wrestling match on a show that was already stacked full of quality matchups. And yeah, this match just kicked into an incredibly high gear, very high octane. Also, at one point, a one-armed gorilla press from John Silver. I don't know if I've seen that before, but it was very impressive. And obviously Silver, at every given opportunity, was flexing for the camera, just being a very comedic heel, but he can more than back it up in the ring. But what he couldn't do was win the match, because it was Orange Cassidy who finally picked up the victory after a longer match than I think many of us anticipated, with the orange punch and the beach break, and he didn't waste any time between those two moves. It was 1, 2, and then a 3 count. The best friends came out to celebrate with him. They did the big hug in the middle of the ring. But then later on in the night, we're skipping ahead a little bit here, as they were being interviewed backstage, the best friends and Orange Cassidy were confronted by Sabian, Miro, and Penelope Ford. Their feud is certainly continuing. Rumours are that it's just going to play out on TV. They're not going to have a pay-per-view match, kind of like the feud between the best friends and Santana and Ortiz, which I think is a decent decision from AEW there. Still putting a bit of value in the TV show, even though they build to these massive loaded pay-per-views. But anyway, yeah, the feud just continued to rumble on because they had a bit of an argument, and then Orange Cassidy was forced to apologise to Penelope Ford by Kip Sabian. He kind of did so in like a bit of a sorry kind of way, because obviously his recent entanglements with the Dark Order almost got Penelope Ford knocked over, attacked by the Dark Order. So he didn't really apologise properly. Sabian slapped him in the face, and there was nearly a brawl between the two teams, but instead Cassidy just kind of turned the other cheek and led the best friends away. Next up, we get the TNT Championship match between the champion Cody Rhodes, as he is now known of course, and the challenger Darby Allin. And Darby had a big special entrance, pulling up in the car that was used in the recent vignettes that he was shooting. There's a driver with matching face paint as Darby. Darby gets out, the front of the car's got Face of TNT on it. He gets his skateboard, which also has Face of TNT written on it. He hits the car with the skateboard because he's Darby Allin and he doesn't mind destroying his own property, and heads to the ring. And at this point, it became obvious that Darby had special big match paint on. It was like trees in a winter sort of wood scene. It was lovely. Cody, of course, was accompanied by his entourage for his entrance, all of his family, not just his actual family, Dustin and Brandy, but also the Nightmare family, which now includes Billy and Austin Gunn. And we got our third high quality, massively well worked work rate match of the night in a row. 4 if you count the pre-show. A lot of wrestling on this show early on. But it wasn't all just smooth exchanges and stuff. Darby took some nasty bumps in this match, which, we kind of know him for. I mean, Cody dominated large portions of this match. I think Darby kind of dominated the early stages with his speed and his agility, but it didn't take long for Cody's power advantage to really start to make a difference. But he threw Darby to the outside at one point, like the infamous body bag spot, but without the body bag, and Darby just landed hard on the ramp. Also an avalanche crossroads from the top, which I don't think we've seen from Cody before, but Darby managed to roll and get his foot under the ropes, or maybe his arm. He got a limb under the ropes. Then we got to the storytelling portion of the match with Cody screaming at Darby, just stay down, stay down. Obviously Darby wouldn't stay down. Cody hit him with a power slam and another one, and just kind of seemed like he didn't know what to do, so he took the weight belt off, and despite the referee telling him not to use it, he did consider it. And then as he was considering, Darby tripped him with his own weight belt, roll up, 1, 2, only a near fall. And it was the first of various near falls for Darby Allin here. The Last Supper pinfall, for example, only got a near fall. The coffin drop, his finisher, only got a near fall. And now it looked like only a matter of time until Cody picked up the win. He went for the crossroads, Darby reversed it, 1, 2, into a roll-up by Cody, 1, 2, into a roll-up by Darby. They went back and forth, and Darby Allin picked up the win here. That makes Darby the new TNT champion. He has actually become the face of TNT. But at the same time, that's not where the action stopped. Because Cody, after the match, was very gracious. He's still very much a babyface, presenting Darby with the championship, holding his hand up, and then they were interrupted by Taz. Taz came out saying, oh, let me wipe my tears away, isn't this a touching scene? But really, this isn't good enough, But it turns out that Taz's promo was all a distraction because Cage and Starks were in the ring from behind and jumped the two good guys. The pair then took Darby Allin past the timekeeper's area out to the sort of, the entrance bit to the right of the stage where Darby drove up, in fact, for his entrance, and they put Darby through a piece of the set, but they're not done. They drag him over to his own car and look to Pillmanize his arm in the car door. And just when it looks like all hope is lost, they've fought Cody off as well by this point. Cody's useless at this stage. He is saved by Will Hobbs. I guess this means that Hobbs has turned down the invitation to join Team Taz, but we'll see how it plays out on Dynamite. Next up, we get the AEW Women's Championship match between Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose. And I think I preferred their previous pay-per-view match, but at the same time, this was still a good one and was still better than the build, because it didn't really get much of a build, did it? This was very rushed, it felt like, over the past couple of weeks, but the match was, I think, better than what, preceded it. The pair have got good chemistry by this stage. It was very back and forth, but then things took a turn for a bit of the wacky. I was saying on our live stream that I think that Kenny Omega put this match together. There were a lot of kind of Kenny Omega style tropes in this one, a few things that he may have used back in New Japan. This all kind of started to happen when Nyla Rose hit the Beast Bomb 1-2, and then she voluntarily pulled Shida up at 2. The belt's on the line, Nyla. Now is really not the time. But she did so because she wanted to win the match by stealing Shida's finisher, as she did on Dynamite to Red Velvet this past week. So she hit the ropes, hit the move, 1-2, sorry, just one, and Shida kicked out immediately. This has got Kenny Omega's fingerprints all over it. Shida then headed up top with Nyla Rose, hit an avalanche Falcon Arrow, and this time she pulled Nyla up at 2, and now I'm like, what is going on here? And of course, it's now time for Vicky Guerrero to get involved. As Shida hit the ropes to deliver the running knee, Vicky tripped her from the outside. Things spilled to the outside, but Shida was able to turn the tables here, shoving Nyla into Vicky, who took a bump. Fair play to Vicky for that. And then it was all Shida from here on out. She got Nyla back in the ring, multiple running knees. They didn't all deal enough damage to put Nyla away, but eventually the accumulative damage caused by all of the multiple knee strikes that she delivered were enough to put Nyla away. And Hikaru Shida is still the AEW Women's Champion. But we had some interesting developments after the match as well, and not ones that I thought, actually. First of all, Vicky was livid at Nyla Rose, screaming at her in the middle of the ring, slapping her in the face even, and I thought, oh, here we go, Nyla is going to destroy Vicky here. Instead, Nyla kind of sadly accepted it and followed her to the back. So could this be an impending babyface turn for Nyla, perhaps? Are we waiting week on week for when she's going to finally snap and turn on Vicky? Who knows? Next up, we get, in my mind, the match of the night, but your mileage may vary, but it had a lot of hype to live up to, and I think that it did. I think it just about did live up to it. I'm, of course, referring to the AEW Tag Team Championship match between FTR and the Young Bucks, a match literally years in the making. Now, obviously, a hell of a lot of stuff happened in this match, so I'm not going to be able to recap every single thing that happened of significance, but one of the crucial things that happened early on in this match was Dax Harwood going to nail one of the Young Bucks, can't remember which one. They moved and he hit the ring post, and that really damaged his hand, and that played a key role in the rest of the match. We also, at various different points in this match, got a lot of homages to other tag teams. FTR often sprinkle their matches with these sort of moves, but the Bucks did so here as well. So at one stage, FTR hit the Heart Attack like the Heart Foundation. Later on, the Bucks hit the Twist of Fate Swanton Bomb combo like the Hardy Boys, who they've obviously feuded with in the past in Ring of Honor. The Bucks also hit the 3D at one stage, obviously the Dudley Boys, but I think the most surprising one was FTR heading to an opposite corner of the ring each and hitting Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa's meet in the middle, the super kick knee strike combination. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe they'd so openly reference their amazing feud, but a feud that was on NXT with DIY. But I'm not complaining, because it was really cool. Of course, as injured as Dax Harwood's hand is, it doesn't play as key a role as Matt Jackson's knee, or ankle, sorry, which was obviously Pillmanized by FTR prior to this match during the build. This was most noticeable, I think, and there were various times when this cropped up and was crucial, as there were a lot of moments when Harwood's hand was crucial in switching the momentum of the match. But the most crucial moment involving Matt's leg was, I think, the sharpshooter spot. What happened here was the Young Bucks got FTR in stereo sharpshooters, Matt in the ring with Harwood, Nick outside of the ring with Cash Wheeler. FTR managed to clasp hands with each other underneath the bottom rope to, well, one, stop Harwood from tapping out, and two, try and break the hold, but the ref wasn't having it. Matt dragged Dax away from his partner. Cash was tapping on the outside on the ramp, obviously that doesn't matter, and then Matt's leg gave out, and he couldn't hold on long enough to force Harwood to quit. FTR then gained control again. Well, first of all, they managed to survive the BTE trigger. Then later on, they managed to turn the tables with the spike piledriver and then isolating Matt from Nick. They took Nick to the outside. Cash slammed him into the timekeeper's table. I think he was going to go through it, but he just kind of hit it and bounced off. It looked quite nasty. And then they isolated Matt in the ring, took off his wrestling boot and started to really focus on that injured ankle. But Matt was able to grit it out and hang on for just long enough for Nick to recover, head up top, and break it up with a 450. That sounds like a ridiculous spot that was way too fast-paced to make sense, but it did make sense in the context of the match. They did leave enough time for Nick's recovery to be believable. And then we got the finish of the match with Cash Wheeler and Matt Jackson, the legal men, left alone in the ring together. And because Matt's leg was destroyed by this point, Cash had the match won. But instead what he did was, he betrayed FTR's own philosophy, headed to the apron, went for a springboard 450, a beautiful one by the way. He can do flips, he just chooses not to, and he missed. Matt rolled out of the way, rose to his feet, big super kick to Cash Wheeler, 1, 2, 3, and the Young Bucks are AEW Tag Team Champions. Remember the stipulation, if they'd lost, they could never challenge for those belts again. So it's a huge result for the Young Bucks, and it's a huge result for the editor of this video and one of our editors here at Cultaholic, Owen, who I was doing the live stream with because we live together. We're not breaching lockdown rules, of course. And with this result, Owen won the Cultaholic Heavyweight Championship on his first go, and I don't know where we go from here. Congratulations, mate. Well done. Who knows what we're going to do next? I guess Owen will have to defend it at some point, maybe Survivor Series. I really don't know what we're going to do. But after this match between FTR and the Young Bucks, we got Kenny Omega coming out to the ring to celebrate with the Bucks. And then just in the edge of the frame, we had Hangman Page lurking in the entranceway with a drink, defeated by Kenny earlier in the night and looking devastated and possibly a bit vengeful. And it looks like this Elite storyline is continuing. I know Hangman's not part of the Elite anymore, but you know what I mean. This was, of course, an incredible match. As I mentioned, my personal favourite match of the night. But at the same time, I do admit that the build was a little bit weird. Why did they try and turn the Bucks heel for a bit, only to abandon that and then turn them back? I don't know. But the match, I think, kind of makes up for it. This was really good stuff. Next up, and I think this was probably a wise decision, we followed that long, drawn-out, incredible, technical, psychological masterpiece with a Matt Hardy cinematic match. So next up was, of course, Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara in the Elite Deletion. Unlike the kind of AEW-style cinematic matches like the Stadium Stampede, for example, this was far more in the mold of the original Broken Matt Hardy cinematic matches, before they were known as cinematic matches, of course. Because this had far more of a vibe, of the final deletion, the original one with Matt and Jeff, than it did, anything that's come since, really. For one, it took place at the Hardy compound. It contained a lot of the same motifs, fireworks, the dilapidated boat made an appearance, for example, the Lake of Reincarnation, we had cameos, all that sort of thing. And, quite infamously back then, I was very critical towards it. My main criticism of this one would be that it was just a bit too long, I think. It was very drawn out, but at the same time, it was well produced, it was well made. There were a lot of moments that got a big laugh from me. Maybe I've softened over the years, who knows? But I'm interested to hear what people thought about this. Forgive me for reading my notes off the laptop, but I'm just gonna whiz through everything that happened here, because there was a lot jammed in. So Sammy arrives at the Hardy compound in a custom golf cart with Spanish God written on it. Obviously, Sammy's been hit by golf carts in the past. He is greeted by Neo One, who projects a hologram of Matt Hardy, welcoming him to the Elite Deletion. And then Matt appears behind the golf cart in a monster truck and runs it over and crushes the golf cart, murdering Sammy forever. Except Sammy has escaped. He comes back with a trash can, attacks Matt with it, and then tries to drown him in a fountain. And then they fight their way over to a ring that has been set up. And the match, I guess, properly begins. And it looks like Matt has the match won. He hits a powerbomb through a table in there, but Santana and Ortiz are on hand. They found the Hardy compound somehow. Maybe they followed Sammy to the area. They dash in and save him and break up the pinfall. And there's no DQs, it turns out, in this one. Who would have guessed? So it looks quite bleak for Matt. It's 3-on-1. Santana and Ortiz are really taking it to him. But then he's saved by his boys, of course, the Private Party, who have pulled up in a car of their own. And it becomes like a big kind of battle between two opposing sides. There's fireworks being shot everywhere. There's people running through the trees for cover. It's shot really well. and it's completely ridiculous, of course. Right, this is my favourite bit. It looks like Matt has Sammy beat, but he is distracted because somebody, a hooded figure, has taken the Hurricane hostage. The Hurricane's back. He's Matt's friend, of course, so that distracts Matt. He's like, who are you? And the man reveals, he pulls back his hood, and it's Gangrel? Yes! That's right, Gangrel is there in 2020 on a major wrestling pay-per-view. He explains that he trains Sammy. He's Sammy's mentor. He'll always choose Sammy over Matt. Of course, Matt used to be aligned with Gangrel in the New Brood. Apparently that does not matter one bit to Big Gangrel. Then Hurricane gets thrown into the Lake of Reincarnation. We see an old gimmick of his. He gets thrown back in. He comes back out as the Hurricane. It's all kicking off, guys. And then the end game comes when Sammy gets locked inside the Dome of Deletion thanks to an assist from Skarsgård, the dilapidated boat, which falls over. Just these sentences coming out of my mouth, which falls over, Sammy trips, falls inside the Dome of Deletion, which I think is a garage, or a garage if you're American, just a garage on the side of Matt Hardy's house with a ring in it. So the piano's there as well, of course, the wheelchair's there, all the motifs that we know from the Broken Universe. Sammy undoes one of the ring ropes because there's another ring set up in there and chokes Matt out with the rope, but Matt wakes up just in the nick of time. Then Sammy hits a swanton off a ladder through a table, but Matt kicks out of that. Then Sammy hits a spear, no, Matt hits a spear off the apron, through another table, and the back of Sammy's head is busted wide open and he's bleeding from the mouth. And it's only a matter of time until Matt finishes him off, but the move he finishes him off with is a brutal concerto to Sammy's head, but not with another chair underneath him, just the concrete of the floor of the Dome of Deletion. That is it, that's the match. Matt Hardy wins. He scoops up Sammy Guevara with the help of Private Party, puts him in a bin, a wheelie bin. What do you call that elsewhere in the world? A trash can with wheels, and wheels him away. And they put the bin on the back of a pickup truck. Senor Benjamin's driving the pickup truck. He's like, hello, this is my cameo. And then he drives away with Sammy's body in the back. What a happy ending for all. And now, quite breathlessly by this point, we move on to, I think, the most unfortunate match of the night. A match that I still very much enjoyed, but one which I think I would have enjoyed just that little bit more if it wasn't in a very challenging position. Chris Jericho versus MJF. Of course, if MJF wins, he's in the inner circle. And as I say, this match came at a really difficult part of the night. It's following an incredible tag team title match, just insane work rate and psychology all the way through, and then it's following a Matt Hardy cinematic Broken Universe kind of deal, and now it's got to try and stand out on its own. But it did stand out, and it did so because obviously this was a heel versus heel match, and usually in heel versus heel matches they kind of turn one of the people babyface just for that match. The bigger heel kind of gets sympathy for the other heel by being a heel to them, and then the other heel, the smaller heel, is kind of the babyface in the context of just that match. I've said the word heel a lot there. But in this match, they didn't try and turn either guy heel. They let the crowd boo everyone, and, you know, they heeled out on each other. There were double finger bites, there were eye pokes from both men at various stages, and I think it worked. I think it really worked better than if they tried to get sympathy for one guy or the other. There were some entertaining sequences as well. This was a very intelligently put together match. At one point, for example, Jericho gets the walls locked in, MJF makes the ropes just about, and then steals the code breaker, and then hits a disgusting looking, oh my word, a disgusting looking heat seeker. His, like, you know, I can't even think what you'd call it. You know the move, the one, it's similar to Randy Orton's rope-assisted DDT, but it's not a DDT, it's more of like a pile driver, and it looks nasty. MJF goes for the lion salt, he tries to steal that move as well, but Jericho rolls out the way, goes for the Judas effect, MJF catches it and locks in the Salt of the Earth Fujiwara armbar. Now, it seems like Jericho might tap out here, because earlier in the match he Judas effect elbowed the ring post on the outside, it really hurt his arm, but he doesn't, he manages to cling on, so MJF has to call in reinforcements. That is, of course, in the form of Wardlow, who rushes down behind the ref's back and hands MJF the Dynamite Diamond Ring. MJF goes for it while Wardlow distracts the referee, but Jericho calls to Hager, who is suddenly on the outside, who throws in the baseball bat, and we have a standoff. Except we don't, because MJF sees what's happening and does the Eddie Guerrero, pretends he's been hit by the baseball bat, and when the referee turns round, she sees him unconscious on the canvas and Jericho standing over him with a foreign object. And just when it looks like Aubrey is about to maybe disqualify Jericho or maybe let it go and let the match continue, we never find out which way she would go, because MJF springs to life from the canvas, rolls up Jericho with a handful of tights, of course, and beats him. MJF has out-heeled Chris Jericho. After the match, there's a lot of tension and awkwardness, not between MJF and Jericho, who are suddenly all friends again. Jericho's like, you got me, that was good to be fair, mate. But MJF also is happy about joining the Inner Circle. The tension comes from Wardlow and Hager, and as they all leave together, I think we're going to see a match between those two at some point. And finally, we get the main event of the night, Jon Moxley defending his AEW World Championship against Eddie Kingston, who in this build-up has been superb. This match was, of course, an I Quit stipulation. It was gruesome, it was bloody, it was kind of everything you'd want from this stipulation. I don't think it was the best match of the night, but it was good enough to really close the show on a high note. I mean, part of that was the blood and the spots and the carnage and everything, but part of it was the emotion that both Moxley, but also especially Eddie, managed to wring out of every moment. They're so good at it. They're so good at it. And I mean, what a journey it's been for Eddie Kingston this year. He might be the only person in the world who's had a good year 2020. I mean, we got both men bleeding from pretty early on in the match. We got Eddie Kingston trying to use the barbed wire baseball bat. Well, we got Moxley trying to use it, and then Eddie using it in a different way. He actually, while selling the hand, pulled off a section of the barbed wire and just used it to mutilate the champion. We also got a back fist from Eddie with the barbed wire around his fist, and then of course, Eddie got the thumbtacks. Now, usually I buy into the theory that whoever lays the trap, whoever sets up the table or the chair or the ladder or the thumbtacks, they're the one going through it. That's not what happened here. Eddie introduced the thumbtacks, Moxley went through the thumbtacks, and they were in his back and arm and the top of his head eventually, because there were several suplexes, and the thumbtacks ended up scattered like all over the ring, and yeah, it didn't look nice. And then Eddie went to the outside to the doctor's area and got the rubbing alcohol, which I hope was just water. I hope it was gimmicked rubbing alcohol. Obviously he poured it all over the wounds on Moxley's back. Moxley sold it like death. Ugh, it just makes you shiver thinking about it. Then, of course, Kingston used Moxley's bulldog choke against him, but Moxley refused to quit the match. Kingston used a pile driver, Moxley used the paradigm shift. They're not moves that are going to get someone to quit, but they're going to gain you the advantage. And the paradigm shift did gain Moxley a huge advantage. And from there, he managed to make Eddie Kingston quit. He managed to get the barbed wire, the little section that Kingston had broken off earlier, and use like a barbed wire assisted bulldog choke where he's choking Eddie and the barbed wire's cutting into him as he's being choked, and Eddie quits. Now, I know that basically Eddie Kingston shouldn't quit, he's Eddie Kingston, but if you're gonna book a spot that's believable enough and unpleasant enough to make you think that would make him quit, I think they got near enough with this one. So Jon Moxley is still the AEW World Champion, but what a ride it's been for Eddie Kingston. I'm delighted that he's part of AEW. I didn't really think he was going to win this match. Part of me really wanted him to, but, you know, we've got bigger fish to fry in terms of Moxley, Omega, and hopefully eventually Hangman as well in that main event scene. But Kingston, man, I'm so glad he's still going to be sticking around. He might have a future feud with Pac if he comes back to reclaim his friends. Phoenix looked annoyed at one point on the pre-show when Eddie referred to Pentagon, or Pentagon referred to Eddie as, you know, their best friends, and Phoenix was like, ugh, this is a bit annoying. There's so many different directions they can go with Eddie Kingston, and I hope they continue to use him because he's phenomenal. After the match, Moxley tried to make amends with Kingston, and I think this was brilliant for his character. Eddie was like, nah, mate, and left on his own. And I thought, yeah, that's what he would do. He wouldn't want to make friends just because they've had a good match. He'd be like, no, I still hate you. And that's what he did. And he just left. Then Kenny Omega came out for a stare down with the man he's going to face for the title. But he didn't get in the ring. He just kind of warily looked at Moxley, very confidently though still, over the top rope, and then left Moxley to it. Left him to his celebration. And that's how we ended the show. So many ways this can go in the future. So that was it. That is what happened at Full Gear 2020. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to every single person who joined in with mine and Owen's live stream. I was a bit concerned because Adam Pacitti is so good at live streams that people were going to be a bit annoyed, a bit turned off by the fact that it was me and Owen on there instead, but you all very, very positive, especially for Owen as well, who smashed it as his first time on a YouTube live stream. I've been doing it for a few years now, but, you know, I'm still not that good. So thanks very much for being positive, everybody. And, yeah, there's not much more to say. Let me know what you thought of this show in the comments section down below. Stay safe out there. Stay positive. My voice is gone, and I'll see you very soon.